What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to talk really quick about a returning weapon for Season 19, and it's the Wendigo grenade launcher. And so this is a reprised weapon dropping in Nightfalls this season, and it's a pretty good heavy grenade launcher with quite a few perk options available. So in this video we'll talk a bit about the weapon and some good roles to look out for if you're farming Nightfalls this season. And so as always, I hope you enjoy the video, but getting into it, there is both the normal and adept version of this weapon as always. And Wendigo is going to start dropping with the reset this week. Originally, Wendigo was a Pinnacle Weapon in Season of Opulence, which saw the arrival of the Explosive Light perk, and picking up an Orb of Light increases the damage of the next projectile. That increase is actually 44% now, which is absolutely huge, and this can be stacked up to 6 times, so collecting 6 orbs will grant Explosive Light times 6, which in turn grants 6 damage buffed projectiles to fire from the weapon. In its original form, it was a curated roll with only this and auto-loading holster in the traits, but now it returns with random rolls dropping in the normal way from Nightfall completions, and the adept version dropping from Grandmasters. It's an arc-adaptive frame heavy grenade launcher with 6 in the mag at base. And to talk about perks, it has the origin trait Stunning Recovery, and stunning a champion partially refills your magazine, triggers health regeneration, and improves recovery for a short duration. Then there's also the option of Vanguard Vindication, and final blows with the weapon grant a small amount of health. And finally, it additionally has Omolon Fluid Dynamics, and the weapon has increased reload speed and stability for the top half of the magazine. Obviously, the trait that you choose is going to depend on the content you're playing, as well as preference of course. But to talk about trait perks, in slot 1, it's able to roll auto-loading holster, as well as field prep, chain reaction, impulse amplifier, clown cartridge, and steady hands. Obviously, clown cartridge and auto-loading holster for ammo and reload purposes are pretty awesome. And the other two most popular first trait slots for grenade launchers right there are things like chain reaction of course, as well as impulse amplifier. And then in slot 2, obviously explosive light is pretty good. And once again, picking up an orb of power increases the next projectile's blast radius and damage. With Wendigo, it's always been collect 6 orbs and get 6 high damage rounds back. Presumably that will stay the same. But then there's also Cascade Point, a new perk this season, and final blows or sustained precision hits with another weapon increase this weapon's rate of fire for a short duration. Then additional options include Full Court, and that increases detonation damage as projectiles travel further before exploding. And at roughly 50 meters, that will be a 25% damage bonus, but it will vary depending on range. On top of that though, there is Frenzy, and being in combat for an extended time increases damage, handling and reload speed for the weapon until you're out of combat. And the damage bonus itself there is 15% after being in combat for 12 seconds. So I'd say depending on how you want to play, Explosive Light, Full Court, or even Golden Tricorn, which can also roll in that second slot, and allows final blows with the weapon to grant bonus damage. Each of those are going to be really good damage bonuses. But if you're able to take advantage of Explosive Light, that has the highest damage boost, so obviously you need to be able to kill stuff to pick up the orbs. And then there's a degree of timing in using those boosted rounds well, but it's really good for DPS. It's probably going to be a pretty good weapon for solo players. And then with Full Court, it's a great option because the damage boost is always there, but the downside is the range that you need to be at to get the bonus. So it's going to depend on encounter. Plus Full Court will possibly be more limited to boss DPS in a lot of situations. Then to mention Golden Tricorn, it's also pretty interesting as a possible DPS perk because it gives 15% bonus damage for 7 seconds if you make a weapon kill, but then matching grenade or powered melee kills will increase the damage to 50% for 10 seconds, so obviously super powerful, but requires a bit of setting up. I would say though, on the subject of Cascade Point, if you focus in on DPS, this is going to be one to watch because you can proc the damage bonus using other weapons while making precision hits. So there are definitely some loadouts there where you can proc Cascade Point as you're switching through weapons in the DPS phase or something like that. And so for best rolls overall, trait-wise, obviously there are quite a few options on the weapon, but typically for barrels, Volatile Launch and Confine Launch are popular because they improve blast radius and handling, and both of those can roll on Wendigo. Then for magazines, Wendigo can roll Spike Grenades, Proximity Grenades, Alloy Casing, and High Velocity Rounds. And in that order, they're probably the best options, with obviously Proximity Grenades being a preference thing. And then I'd say in slot 1 is deciding between ammo and reload bonuses, where Impulse Amplifier and Clown Cartridge are both very appealing. Impulse Amplifier massively increases the projectile velocity as well as increasing reload speed. And obviously reloading with Clown Cartridge allows the weapon to randomly overfill from reserves. Obviously, if we can only get 6 explosive light rounds, then some of those Clown Cartridge rounds won't get the damage bonus. Just something to think about. But the other option with the first trade slot is to go with Chain Reaction, which is more focused on multi-kills, but will work with the damage boosts in slot 2. And then talking about slot 2, I'd look to play around with Cascade Point because the faster rate of fire will increase DPS. Certainly worth trying if you get one dropped, but for safe damage increases, Explosive Light is super strong. And then there's Golden Tricorn and Full Court if you're happy to do a bit more setup, or can keep that longer distance to benefit from Full Court. I'd be pretty excited if I could get something like Chain Reaction Golden Tricorn. Or otherwise for me, Impulse Amplifier or Auto-Loading Holster in the first slot with Explosive Light would also be pretty awesome for PvE stuff. But let us know what you guys think of the weapon and what your preferred roles will be on it. And for today, I hope the video has been enjoyable. If it has, a rating below really does help us out on the channel. Plus be sure to get subscribed for more Destiny content, and I will keep you posted. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day. And so it's capable of putting out some pretty significant damage, as you can see. This is not what you'd typically expect from a legendary grenade launcher, but one of the reasons that I think this is really cool is that it is a fantastic weapon to run as a solo player. Of course, because you're picking up Orbs of Light, one of the first things you think about is being in a fire team with other Guardians, but naturally, when we produce things like Masterwork Weapon Orbs, they will also count for the Explosive Light perk. So if you're running a couple of different Masterwork weapons and you're chewing your way through content as a solo player, then obviously you'll be dropping those orbs and this will still work pretty effectively. Really fun weapon for destroying bosses in strikes. Even if you're farming lost sectors, public events, things like that is pretty cool. And on the subject of those orbs, the small orbs produced by your Masterwork weapons or any type of orb generated by other Guardians will work for this. The thing to note is that the perk does allow you to pick up Orbs of Light at any time. So even if you've got a maxed out super, you're still going to pick up orbs because the trait on the weapon allows it. And so you probably want to bear that in mind. Maybe be a little bit careful that you don't waste opportunities to get your super energy back. But of course, whenever you are with other players, the weapon is going to be fantastic as well. And people are already doing mad DPS to bosses in raids. There's so many situations where we're using Wells of Radiance, tethers. In most PvE environments, orbs tend to be pretty much absolutely everywhere. So that's another reason that I think this weapon is a bunch of fun. And that pretty much is it. Otherwise, it's a very typical adaptive grenade launcher. We should probably mention some of the other perks. So it does have smart drift control, as well as blinding grenades, and it's got auto-loading holster as well, which is a great bonus for PvE. The Masterwork it comes with is for velocity, which definitely isn't a bad bonus. And in terms of mods on this thing, I'd say the absolute top priority would be something like boss spec, maybe major spec, although a lot of the time you are going to end up wanting to dump these rounds into bosses and get that tasty, tasty damage.